Glad you're here. Welcome. This is table 45 for those who may not know or who are new to us. Table means we are sitting around a table or near a table. It's also part of our mission statement that God opens the door and makes room at the table. So we're always trying to make room at all the tables that we're at. So not even just this table, but any table that you're a part of at our church, we always want to make room for other people. And then the 45 is there's less than 45 minutes I have to get this thing done. So we'll try to make that happen. So donuts and coffee, help yourself at any point. And then we do have name tags. If I don't have one for you, let me know. We will get one for you. But try to put those at your table. If you could try to put them back in the order you found it, it makes it a lot easier for us so it's not a free-for-all. It's a free-for-all next week. So anyway. So we're going to start a new series today. You probably have it on your table there, but the series is called When God Runs Late. Does that resonate with anybody? Anybody ever experienced how God runs late in your life? Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, so what I'd like to do is take a look at all the different times, not all the different times, but many of the different times that God runs late through Scripture. Today we're going to talk about a promise that was delayed. In future weeks, we're going to talk about justice delayed, deliverance delayed, calling delayed, help delayed, and hope delayed. There is too many examples of God being late in Scripture, and I don't have time to go through all of them, so I kind of picked maybe 6 that would work for us. As always, we will not meet on a Unity Sunday. So the first of the month, we won't have our Table 45. But if you're on our list, you'll get a text message about it and let you know when we're having it and when we're not. So in the 1860s, the United States was in the middle of a war. Anyone remember it? So no one remember it. It was a trap. Jody was there. In the last service, one of the members was picking on Miss Faye, and they said, "You should have asked Faye what Moses was like." Yeah. And Gary Hollister, if you remember Gary, he had a great sense of humor. Gary told me once, he was talking about Miss Margaret, and he said, "Hey, did you know Miss Margaret and Moses played soccer together?" a cheap shot for sure. But so in the 1860s, the United States was in the middle of a civil war, and slavery defined life, especially in the southern states, for generations. And on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. You've probably heard that from your history class, right, when you were growing up in school. And it's too long to read here, but there was one line that stood out that forever changed American history, and it was this: that all persons held as slaves are and henceforward shall be free. That was what was written. It wasn't really a speech he gave. It was kind of written on a document. All persons held as slaves shall be free. It declared that anyone who was enslaved, especially in the Confederate States, they were to be set free. That was January 1st, 1863. That was the promise. That was what was spoken. Awesome, right? Except that was not the reality. That was what was written on paper. But the reality was the war still went on, even though that was said. There was no immediate enforcement of this law. And remember, back then, news did not spread quickly, right? Like we have today. Something could happen across the globe and we'd find out about it in about 2 minutes. Back then, it took a long time to get news. Also, the South, y'all, I'm from the North, so I can say this, y'all weren't listening. I got Brian to help me out when my bodyguard, but the South wasn't listening because slavery propped up the economy, right? And to not have slavery would remove free labor, and the South was not going to do that. The slaveholders were not going to do that. In fact, some slaveholders intentionally withheld this news when they heard it, when they heard that Lincoln issued this Emancipation Proclamation, because it benefited them. They did not want to obey this law until conveniently after the harvest season. They wanted one more free harvest in there. Because the slave owners benefited from the delay. So the promise was real, right? Lincoln's promise was real. The slaves are free. But the reality didn't catch up to that promise, right? And that's what we find here. So January 1st, 1863, days passed, weeks passed, months passed, years passed. the promise was declared, but they were still living in the delay. And then on June 19th, 1865, this is where we get the Juneteenth. June 19th, 1865, Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and a Union general commander named Gordon Granger arrives at Galveston, and he says this: all slaves are free. That was it. So from January 1st, 1863 to June 19th, 1865. Anyone know how long that is? 2.5 years? 900 days. 900 days. Think that's a big deal if you're a slave? An extra 900 days? Yeah. I wanted to sink in for a minute, because for some people, January 1st, 1863, slavery was over immediately. And for other people, it was a transition. They hadn't heard and they weren't in that free period. So I want you to picture just for a moment. You are a slave in Galveston, Texas. You've been serving as a slave for over 2 decades. The last 20 years of your life, you've been waking up every morning to serve somebody else's dream. That's been your reality. It's June 20th. It's the day after Gordon Granger shows up as a Union captain, commander, and says all slaves are free. And that reality hits you. You are now realizing what Lincoln had said 2.5 years prior is your actual reality today, as you woke up a free man or a free woman. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Before you answer it, take a moment around your group and talk about. In fact, underneath your table piece there, you'll have a small group questions. One of you lead that for us, but I want you to think about your reality. If you were a slave in that context, what would you be going through your mind? So, all right. So, tell me about your experience. How are you feeling? If it's the day after the announcement, you've been a slave for 2 decades or more, what's going through your head?
What do I do next?
What do I do next? Okay, that's probably reasonable. You don't believe it? Yeah.
Upset.
You're upset?
Yeah.
What are you upset about?
I've just been told.
Okay, so you're upset about the... Yeah.
That time I missed, I mean, with all the other feelings, of course.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Yeah, it's only 900.
What's 900 days, right? Yeah, so there's a part of it, though, like when you found out when it actually happened. Yeah. What else are you feeling?
What am I going to do now?
Okay. Yeah, that's what Paul's asking this morning, I'm sure, Pastor.
I've been fed and clothed and housed as meek
Yeah.
as it was, but
That's right.
how do I earn a living? I've never earned a living.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Yeah.
In 1982, I was with a fellow his family owned a big ranch down in Georgia,
Yeah.
and this black fellow was there. We were setting up for a trade show, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You know, the boy will do that. The boy will do this.
He basically was still a slave with that.
Yeah, his whole family went through the transition, and he never saw how he could get out of the box.
Yeah.
And into it. You know, he had no encouragement.
Yeah. And it makes sense if it's all he knew, or he was categorized like that. So, how many, if you realized that you could have been free 900 days sooner, how did that strike you? You're angry? Yeah. Who are you angry at? The world? Okay. The slave owner? Yeah. Yeah. The government? Yeah. Somehow they didn't get the word out. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
In those days, the government was the enemy.
Yeah.
There were things that could have happened in those 2+ years too, where you had children, or maybe your spouse was sold
Yeah.
away, you know, your family was torn apart, and you think that was so unnecessary.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
already free.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because the delay of that 900 days would have been extra painful and additionally costly. What are some things that they may have missed in those 900 days. You were saying that maybe in that 900-day period, someone else got sold into slavery and you were separated from family that you may never see again, right? What's another thing that might have happened in that delay?
Some people probably lost their lives.
Yeah, they probably just died just because at the end of whatever time. So they didn't actually get to experience a free life, even for a day, because they had passed away in that time. Think about generationally, like if you were in that 900-day period and you weren't free, meant you couldn't do what you wanted. So in that 900 days, you might have traveled to another place, might have met somebody else, might have started a family. So a whole family never got started because you never got to experience freedom in that real time, right? And these are things that we don't always think about, until we slow down for a minute and go, what's it like to experience, in their case, a promise from Abraham Lincoln that said, you're free. I promise you, you are now free, but they don't get to live out that promise for a long time afterward. And if anyone's ever really lived between the time span between a promise and the experience, it would be Abraham, right? And we know this is a very familiar story to us if you've grown up in church, how Abraham was given this promise, right? He was given this promise at age what? Anyone know? 75. 75, okay? Now, this is kind of a funny promise. We've talked about this before, but the promise that he was given is, I'm going to make you into a great nation. I have it on the sheet if you want to look at it. But you make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I'll make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I'll bless those who bless you, and curse whoever curses you. And to all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So for Abraham, his name would live on if he had a child, right? That was it. But in order for his name to live on, he had to have a child, and he's 75. And so I know back in Bible days, people live longer, but we obviously see from Abraham's response and Sarah's response, they are beyond childbearing years, right? They know that. Like their body's like, that's not happening. So this is a really interesting promise that's being given to Abraham, because up to this moment, he has lived his life with what assumption? At 74, what was his thought about the future? I don't have kids. I don't have a future. I have a wife, but I got nothing. He even says this to God later on in the passage. He's like, I have no inheritance. You know who's going to get my inheritance? Is my servant. All that I have, my servant's going to get it, because he didn't have someone to pass on his name to. If you had a child back then, your story didn't end. That's why it was so big. Your story didn't end. If you had a child back then, you had a future. We kind of understand that a little bit, right? Like my wife and I always joke about we have to make sure we treat our kids well because we need them to take care of us when we're old, right? But back then, that's all you had. They didn't have Social Security and all the different government programs that we have that we might count on one day in our life. If you didn't have a child, who was going to literally take care of you? It was a very real concern. No child didn't just mean you didn't have a future, but your lineage ended. Just cut, stop, right like that. That was not good. So when God wasn't just promising Abraham a baby, he's actually promising him a future. A future. Huge for Abraham. There's another component to the promise too, but a son would equal security because of the no retirement, the no Social Security, no nursing care. It was your safety net. But more than that, a son would have meant your legacy and your identity. If you had a son, it was your legacy and your identity, because your family worth was tied to your family lineage. That's why you see in the Bible when it mentions women who were barren and like the sadness and the despair, that's why, because they realize without this child, I have nothing. It's funny how we've grown like past that. We don't think about that in terms, and now we're like, oh man, I'm going to kill my kids, You can understand why it was such an important deal for Abraham when God finally gave him Isaac, and then God said, what? I'd like you to take your son and sacrifice him. What? Are you kidding me? I've waited all this time, and now you want me to give him back? So you can see the significance on there. Every year for Abraham and Sarah without a child wasn't just a delay and a promise. It felt like a verdict. Let's talk math real quick. Abraham was told he was going to be made into what? A father of many nations at 75. You talk about late start? So you talk about the math. Abraham's reality is he's old, His wife is old. She's barren. They have no children. So this promise, is it just a big promise? It's more than a big promise. What is it actually to Abraham? It's an impossible one. It's an impossible one. I mean, we read it differently because we know the end of the story. We read the Bible. We have all the answers, right? But you got to put yourself in Abraham's sandals for a minute. When he receives this, he's going, a great nation. I'm 75. If I started now, if you gave me the baby tomorrow, I'm not sure this is actually real. And then God's like, yeah, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. Or the next day. Or the next year. The numbers don't add up. Because he's not promising something to Abraham that's unlikely. He's promising something that's actually impossible. When's the best time for Abraham to have a baby? Like he's 75, he's getting this word. When's the best time for him to have it? Right now. Like yesterday. Because you know how this works, right? I remember when my youngest son, when he was born, I was 36. And I remember one night, in the middle of the night, I was trying to take care of him, and the kid would not go to sleep. You remember those days? He would not sleep. I don't know what was going on. He would not go to sleep. And I remember holding him, looking at him. I'm trying to reason with like a 1-month-old. And I'm like, I'm offering him, like, I will give you half of my kingdom if you would just go to sleep right now. And he wouldn't sleep. And then and that's when the first time I ever realized why sleep deprivation is a form of torture in interrogation. Because it was real. And I remember thinking, I don't have the energy for this kid. Like if this is what it is in month 1, I'm in. I'm the white flag, take him back, do whatever you need to. I can't handle this, you know. I was so tired. And I was 36. 36, you know. So Abraham's 75. He's got the most energy he ever would at this point. So every day that there's a delay from the promise, what's going on in Abraham's life? He's a day older. And 75, like, all right, maybe the end of this year, 9 months, I get it. And then 76, then 79, 82, 84, 89. You're like, come on. Like, seriously, I can't even, my grandmother used to tell me she believed in the hereafter. And I said, what do you mean by that? She said, I'm so old that it takes me such energy to go down to like tie my shoes that I ask myself, what else am I hereafter? You know? You believe in the hereafter, yeah. I mean, Abraham is like 89, like it's still not happening. So you see the promise was given, and this is why the next part you see what? The promise was questioned. That makes sense, right? Does that resonate with us? Why we would question this? See, faith isn't the absence of questions. It's actually just bringing those questions to God. Because God's not threatened by honest doubt. He's never threatened by that. What's interesting is that Abraham could not see what God was already counting. Remember what God said about the ancestors? He gave him 2 visuals. Go outside and look up and start counting. Did you ever do that? I mean, it's hard for us to see all the stars because we have all this light pollution, but it's really cool. The other night I looked up and I literally saw Venus and Jupiter. I don't know if you saw that. They were next to each other. Really cool. I only know that because I have an app. But it's really cool to see, like, look up, and he said to Abraham, look up and start counting because that's going to be your descendants and beyond. And we already know, because of our technology, we know how many stars are out there? Billions. Like we literally can't even count it. Then he says to Abraham, hey, while you're outside, I know you've been looking up, now I want you to look down. What's he looking at? Sand. Start counting. Because that's what your ancestors are going to be like. So for Abraham, this question is like, yeah, I don't have any frame of reference for this promise. Like I don't get it. This is why they laughed. This is why they both laughed. I mean, because it's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Humanly, it's just ridiculous. What's next? The promise was forced. Do we ever do this? Do we ever like want something so badly and it's not coming naturally or not coming in our time? So what do we try to do? We try to help out. What's another word for helping it out? Controlling, yeah. Any control freaks in here? Yeah. Don't point at other people. Raise it for yourself. Yeah. Yeah. There's a little bit where Abraham and Sarah were promised, and there's a track record. Abraham said he believed God, right? It was credited to him as righteousness. So there was a part of him that he did trust God. He believed him. And also, the clock kept ticking. And 75 turned to 77, and 77 turned to 82, and 82 turned to 89. And so Sarah had this great idea. Hey, this isn't working out. It's probably my fault, because that's what they believed. If they're barren, it must be the woman's fault. So she said, I know a girl. And Abraham, he really didn't want to do this, right? He really batted this idea. He's like, no. And he seemed pretty willing pretty quickly. He's like, okay, let's do it. So they offer Hagar. That's a whole nother story about that. But what are they trying to do? They're trying to force the promise. They believed the promise. They thought maybe God needs our help. Maybe God needs a little encouragement. What are they really saying is, God, you're late. You're running late. Like, come on. You called me at 75, but let's go. We got some clock's ticking. I'm never going to see this great nation. I need you to get on it. Did Hagar work out? No. Nope. That created a whole other world, literally world of problems from that. What's the temptation when God's timing is off? Take over. Yeah. Because human solutions are not always godly solutions. Yeah. So then what happens? Next part, the promise was reaffirmed. God was realizing, hey, I need to remind Abraham, I'm not slow, I'm not late, I haven't forgotten. Everything's on according to schedule, but I need to remind you of the promise. I need to reaffirm this. He says this, as for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. Does God change his tone? Does he say, you might be the father of many nations? God's not concerned at all. He said in the beginning, count the stars, count the sand. That's what's going to happen. Now all these years have gone by. God's not doubting God. God's not going, you might be. I may have oversold this a little bit. Maybe I was too ambitious. He says it with the confidence. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram, but your name will be Abraham, for I've made you a father of many nations. So God's reminding him of the promise. Do we need that sometimes? Yeah. Do you think Abraham and Sarah needed a reminder after Hagar? That's kind of embarrassing, right? Like, I'm going to wait on God, real quick. Before I wait on you, I'm going to try something real quick on my own, see how that works out. And then I have to go back to God and go, okay, yeah, we messed that one up. That was bad. That's hard, isn't it? I've been through a lot of failure. It's hard to pick yourself up after failure. It's hard to kind of go, okay, that was bad. That was on me. My bad. Yeah. But fortunately, the promise was never dependent on Abraham's ability. It was always dependent on God's power from the very beginning. And God seems to specialize in writing new chapters after bad decisions. Do you know that? We kind of sometimes think in our own world, in our own economy, well, I blew this one. I guess it's over. I guess that promise is going to be removed from me because I made a mistake. And God's like, my promise wasn't conditional on your ability to hold your end. I'm making a covenant, meaning I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to still make sure you're the one who does it. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen on my clock, not yours. Then we see the promise after it was reaffirmed, it was mocked, right? Abraham fell face down and laughed, and he said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? How old is he now? 100. 25 years later. Would that rattle your faith a little bit? Yeah, it does. And I think that's normal. I don't think that's, I don't think we should give Abraham too bad of a rap. He was under the impression that God was going to work sooner than later. Have you ever thought that? Have you ever kind of assumed God would do something sooner than later? Yeah. I know I have. God is way late in my life. So many things that I thought for sure would happen, even by now, haven't happened. I was convinced I was going to be an author before I was age 30. It didn't happen until I was 55. And it was a stupid book. That's all I can produce. That's all I can produce. It's like, whatever. Yeah. I wrote a book, yeah. But I mean, it does. You have these dreams, right? These things that you think would happen sooner, and it doesn't. And sometimes that's on me, and sometimes that's, maybe it wasn't the right timing. I thought my clock's very different than God's clock. So they laugh. He laughs at his wife. Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? I mean, even she's a spry young 90-year-old. But Abraham's the reality is yeah, this is ridiculous. What's funny is what causes them to laugh in disbelief later causes them to laugh in joy. Isn't that cool? Really cool. And then we see the promises fulfilled. In Genesis 21 it says, the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age at the very time God had promised him. Did you see that? Verse 2? I mean, there's so much in that little passage, but the Lord was gracious to Sarah. It reminds him, as he had said. What's God reminding us? His word always comes true. It's what Isaiah wrote many years ago. As the rain comes down from heaven, so my word comes and accomplishes its purpose. When God speaks, anytime God speaks or Jesus speaks in the form of God, anytime he speaks and that word goes out, that word will accomplish everything it's supposed to accomplish before it comes back. That's why in the beginning when it says God said, let there be light, and then the very next verse is, and there was light. Why? Because light didn't have a chance. It didn't have a choice. God said it. It was going to become true. So God had said to Sarah, you're going to have a baby. And the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said. And the Lord did for Sarah what he promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham. And I love that. In his old age. Because what was Abraham saying? I'm too old. And God's like, yeah, watch this. You thought Rod had it bad? Wait till you hold Isaac. You can barely hold that kid up. And then he reminds him at the very, what does it say? At the very time God had promised him. When God promised him 25 years earlier, did he say when? See, Abraham missed a very critical small print. He didn't read the contract. God said, I'm going to give you a baby. And Abraham's like, let's go. I'm signing the paperwork. We have a future. We have a son. We have a legacy. We're set. And he goes off to go to his future. And he didn't read the small print because God didn't say when. He just said he would. And I love it when the Bible says, at the very time God had promised him. Was God late at all? Not even a minute. Not even a minute. This is how God planned it from the beginning. It's just that.
Why?
Why what?
Why wait till he was 100 years old?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I think an easier answer is that when is it more impossible to have a baby? When's the most impossible to have a baby? I mean, it's impossible at 75, and God's like, hold my beer. Like, I'm going to show you what impossible looks like. We're going to make you 100 years old. Because it was already out of Abraham's wildest fast imagination. It could even happen now. It's at 75. So I don't know why. It's a great question. We'll have to ask Abraham and God when we get up there. But all I know is it says that at the very time God had promised him. And Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. Anyone know what Isaac, their baby was named Isaac, right? Anyone know what Isaac's name means? Oh, it's so funny. God's got a sense of humor. So here's what I want to end today is 25 years after the promise, they saw it fulfilled. And I know in a lot of our lives, we often think God's late. He's running late. He's not doing what I thought he would do. He's not doing it when I thought he would do it. He's not doing it how I thought he would do it. He's not doing it in the way I thought he would do it. All those things can be true for us. but it doesn't mean that God is late or even delayed. He's right on his time. And I think the challenge for us is what? Is to stop looking at our clock and say, okay, God, I got to look at your watch. I don't have access to your watch. And this is what's challenging. I know when I do youth retreats and stuff, one of the questions I get all the time from kids is, are we there yet? You know? And they want to know. A lot of these kids are funny. They always want to know, what's next? What are we doing next? What are we doing next? And I don't tell them what we're doing next because they don't need to know what they're doing next. Because if I tell them what they're doing next, they're going to want to know what are they doing after that. It never ends. It just never ends. I mean, you've seen teenagers, right? It's they're like kids, but worse. Like they're just, and they're not even my kids. I can't even do anything to them. I have to like endure them because they're your kids. So I've learned over 25 years of youth ministry, just don't give them the information. They just need to learn to trust us. They just have to trust us. We got you. Well, I trust me. I know the schedule. I got the clock. We're on time. We're good. But it drives them crazy because they want to know. And I think it drives us crazy because we want to know. And God's saying, why don't you, I know you got a really nice looking watch. Love it. Why don't you put that away? I got a watch. You can't see it. I got it. We're not late. So when God runs late, he's not actually running late. He's on time. And you're going to hear that message over and over for the next 5 weeks. So let me close with some prayer and think about that. God, we're grateful for the lesson you teach us over and over and over again about your punctuality. You're actually on time. Help us to be patient. Help us to trust you. Help us to wait. Help us to learn the lessons we need to learn in the waiting, as hard as it is. We thank you for that. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, God bless y'all. Grab a donut on your way out.